This is Matthew Cratter from Trader University, and today I want to talk about what's really happening with Bitcoin. I keep getting emails and YouTube comments from people who think they're being really smart, and they're saying Bitcoin is in a bubble like this guy does, or Bitcoin is just like the tulips. I love this tweet from Nick Carter's saying, show me on a chart where the tulips recover 3 years later and rally to a new all-time high, please. Pointing out that traditional bubbles like the tulip bubble, they never came back. Whereas at Bitcoin, we're getting very close now to hitting new all-time highs. So I want to talk about what's actually happening. If you say Bitcoin is in a bubble, it sounds very smart. Maybe you said this about the dot-com bubble or the housing bubble, but you don't. It's not a wise idea to just call something that's gone up a lot a bubble. And you can see that I responded to Burkhard by saying, have you also been saying that Amazon is in a bubble for the past 20 years? I've literally known people who've been saying that Amazon's been in a bubble for the past 20 years. They've missed out on the entire run, and they don't really have something that, they don't have a falsifiable hypothesis is what we'd call it, where how do you know if you're wrong? If Amazon goes up for 5 years, you say it's in a bubble. It goes up another 5 years, you say it's in a bubble. You really miss out on a lot of opportunities like this if you don't give yourself a way to falsify the hypothesis. One way to falsify the hypothesis that Bitcoin is in a bubble is it goes from 20,000, crashes down to 3,000, and then it starts to hit new all-time highs as it's about to do. So that's one way to falsify it. But what I really wanted to talk about today is what's actually happening. If you say Bitcoin's in a bubble, people who talk this way have no idea and haven't really done their research. Let me show you what's really happening. I wonder if you've ever seen one of these coins in circulation. You go to the grocery store and you need $10 in change, and they give you a Liberty Eagle coin from 1795 that's almost pure gold. They don't, simply because these coins get hoarded. They were very rare. They've all been taken out of circulation. They're now all in private collectors' collections. They're being used as a store of value because the gold content is so high. So a $10 coin that was issued, these were issued between 1792 and 1933 when the ownership of gold coins was made illegal in the US because they wanted to devalue the dollar. That's the last time these were made. But what this is an example of is something called Greshams Law, which you've probably heard about. People like to state it that it means that bad money drives out good. But the way I think about it is that it's an example of how good money gets hoarded. Valuable things get hoarded and taken out of circulation. And when I was a kid, I used to go through my parents' spare change. And back in that day, people had a lot more spare change because everything was done with bills and coins instead of credit cards. And they would let me keep the coins that I liked. And so I would pull out these Lincoln wheat pennies and occasionally some more valuable, like a silver dollar or silver half dollar. So this is what happens. The really valuable money gets hoarded and taken out of circulation, especially if it's a scarce or rare asset. So what we had back in 2017 with Bitcoin really was a bubble. We had a retail trader bubble. We had all these alternate coins, altcoins coming out, ICOs, initial coin offerings. And we had this parabolic rise in Bitcoin where it went from something like $1,000 to $20,000 and then crashed back down in the course of about 24 months. And so people who say Bitcoin's in a bubble, they think that this is what's happening now. But if they think that's because they're not really paying close attention. What's actually happening in 2020 is an example of Gresham's Law. You have corporations, you have millionaires, private investors, institutions, and billionaires taking Bitcoin out of circulation permanently. Bitcoin is the eagle coin of our day. It's being taken out of circulation by smart insider money. People like Michael Saylor, who's the CEO and founder of MicroStrategy, a NASDAQ-traded company. His company has moved most of their cash into Bitcoin. The company now owns 38,250 Bitcoin. These Bitcoin are not going to see the light of day again, at least for many, many years. They've been permanently taken out of circulation. So not only has Michael Saylor, who's obviously a billionaire, done this with his corporate money, his corporation's money. He's done it with his personal money as well. He has invested, he has bought 17,732 Bitcoin at least, as he's disclosed. And these are also taken out of circulations. You can add the 38,250 plus the 17,732. This is a guy who's a billionaire. He's never going to spend this. He's never going to sell it. These Bitcoin are gone, and they were locked up. They were locked up permanently. We just learned that this Mexican billionaire, Ricardo Salinas Pliego, has put 10% of his liquid assets into Bitcoin. And he said that he was very influenced by reading Saifedean Ammous's The Bitcoin Standard, which I highly recommend if you haven't read it before. So on the one hand, you have guys like YouTube commenters saying Bitcoin is in a bubble and thinking they're very clever. And then you have these billionaires who are gobbling up Bitcoin, billionaires in the US, billionaires in Mexico, and billionaires presumably all around the world, possibly some countries and central banks as well, gobbling up Bitcoin and taking it permanently out of circulation. This is what you have to understand is happening. And once all these billionaires own Bitcoin, Bitcoin is not going to be banned. It might become very difficult. We may actually reach the point where you cannot buy Bitcoin, or you have to buy it at such a high premium that no one wants to, simply because all the Bitcoin has been locked up by wealthy people. Now, the good news is it's not too late for the little guy to get in on that. And that's one reason I've been talking so much about Bitcoin for the past 12 months. These Bitcoin, as I said, are being gobbled up. They're being hodled. They're being put into cold storage, and they're never going to be seen again. A lot of people don't realize this. When you think of millionaire or billionaire, you think of yachts, you think of mansions and this sort of thing. And this is, of course, true. But what is more common is that billionaires have a lot of financial assets. They have a lot of equity ownership. They own a lot of stocks. They may own a lot of real estate as an investment as well. They may own gold. But what you'll find when you look at how these, especially startup founders in Silicon Valley, which I'm most familiar with, these people will never sell their stock if they can help it. Instead, they'll borrow against it. This is what Bill Gates did for many years. He did sell some shares, but he also would borrow against the shares. And this is what Elon Musk has been doing for a very long time. He rarely sells any Tesla shares. I'm not even sure he takes I believe he doesn't even take a salary from Tesla. But what he does is he borrows against his stock and then uses that money for personal expenses or to buy fancy houses, which he's obviously been sort of scaling down now. But this is what's going to happen to Bitcoin. This is why I bring it up. So let me give you an example of how you can use your Bitcoin in many years from now without ever selling it or converting it to fiat. Why would you want to convert beautiful Bitcoin to dirty US dollars or dirty euros or dirty yen? They can just be printed in infinite supply. So one Bitcoin today, as I'm recording this, is trading for about 18,000, up over 100% this year, but it's still going much, much higher in my opinion. If you look at Plan B's papers and his models, he has Bitcoin hitting 3 million approximately by 2028. So let's say you buy one Bitcoin today for $18,000. The question I'm always getting is, when do you take profits? And what I would say is that you never take profits unless you maybe you need the money to pay for life-saving cancer treatment or medical treatment, something like that. But other than that, and even in that situation, as I'm going to show you, there are ways around it. You don't want to sell your Bitcoin and convert it to cash in your Bank of America account or convert it to a CD. It just doesn't make any sense, simply because the US dollar is always falling against real assets. It's always losing its purchasing power over time. So what's the solution? And what does Elon Musk do with his stock? What do various Silicon Valley CEOs do with their stock? What they do is they take out loans against them. So if you're Bitcoin, you buy Bitcoin today and it's worth 3 million in 2028. Now this is probably going to happen even without the US dollar losing a lot of purchasing power, just because of increased adoption. So $1 million in 2028 is still going to be something, as is $3 million. So what you could do is you could take out a loan of $1 million, basically a third, 33% of the face value of your Bitcoin holding. And I haven't seen these solutions yet, but I'm sure they're coming, where you have some sort of shared custody of private keys, or you have some way where the lender can share control of the Bitcoin with you. And then if you default on your loan, obviously you lose your Bitcoin to the lender. You're putting it up as collateral. You're taking a loan against Bitcoin. And so the way these usually work is you don't want to take out too large of a loan, because if the stock falls a lot, and this almost happened to Elon Musk a couple times, if you get a margin call, they might have to dump all your shares. In this case, they would sell your Bitcoin. But if you're borrowing, and you could do this more conservatively, instead of borrowing $1 million, you could borrow $500,000 of it. But even if you borrow $1 million, your Bitcoin has to fall more than 66% for you to get a margin call in this case. Bitcoin has had very large drawdowns in the past. It's had 80 to 90% drawdowns. I think these drawdowns will be much less in the future, for the simple reason is we now have billionaires buying every dip and big institutional investors. So that really does create a floor. But you can size this however you want. Maybe you take out a slightly smaller loan, but let's just use $1 million because it's a nice round number. So you basically borrow $1 million, put up $3 million worth of Bitcoin in collateral, and then you pay annual interest on that. So in this case, we don't really know what the interest rate will be when this happens, but let's say it's equivalent to like a mortgage. So it's 2, 3, 4, 5%, depending on the size of the loan, etc., how collateralized it is. So in this case, you'd be paying $40,000 against in order to borrow this $1 million worth of Bitcoin. The good news about this is you don't have to pay taxes on your Bitcoin, because you haven't sold it in this case. And this is the main reason I think people like Bill Gates and Elon Musk never sell their shares. They don't want to have to pay taxes. Why pay taxes on something when you can keep the asset? You can hold on to the asset. It can, especially if you think it's going to continue to appreciate, and then you can have the use of the money by borrowing against it, especially when interest rates are very low as they are now. Now, Bitcoin is the most pristine collateral. It's verifiable. It's scarce. This is going to be something that lenders are going to love to lend against. You're lending against some house in California or New York, and then the pandemic hits and the value plummets. It's a very different proposition from something that is verifiably scarce and that doesn't have these same economic influences weighing on it. So you take out this loan, you don't have to pay taxes on your Bitcoin because you didn't sell it. And then you can use that $1 million, maybe use part of it to pay for one of your kids' weddings, or you use part of it to buy part of a house or to buy a whole house, or maybe you invest in a startup or you start your own business with the money. Now you just need Bitcoin to go up 4% a year to break even, because you're basically paying 4% on that $1 million. You actually need it to go up less, because theoretically you could just liquidate your other 2/3 of Bitcoin. You could sell a little bit to pay the interest income. And so you don't even need a source of outside cash flow to do this, to pay the sort of the financing cost, that 4% a year. If you're using it to maybe buy an apartment building, which will generate rent that you can use to pay off that 4% interest, or if you're using it to start a business at some point, presumably that business will be able to cough up at least $40,000 a year to help cover your Bitcoin loan. So this is what's going to happen. Bitcoin's not in a bubble. Rather, you have these people, mostly billionaires, scooping up Bitcoin, putting it away forever, and they're never going to sell it. If they need the use of it, they will borrow against it in the way that we've been talking about here. And the good news is now you know how to do this, and you're going to be able to do this in the coming years if this is something that interests you. And so I really want you to put away that trading mindset. I love trading momentum stocks. They're places, they're times to trade. I've made a lot of money trading, but there are also times when you just want to hold something. If you were dealing with Picasso paintings or Hawaiian beach real estate, these are not things you trade. These are things, if you have enough money, you buy them and you hold them in the family forever. This is what Bitcoin is going to be like, in my opinion. It's the rarest store of value in the world. Billionaires have figured this out, and I want to make sure that everyone else has it figured out too. So the nice thing about this is you'll be able to keep your Bitcoin. You'll also have that new house or business or whatever you are investing the loan in. If you found this video helpful, be sure to hit that subscribe and like button. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I publish my next video. And let me know your questions and comments in the comment section below. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.